Hi, everyone, and welcome to Data Brunch with ICPSR. If you love data, this is going to be food for thought. I'm Dory.
And I'm Scott. If you're new to our podcast, welcome. ICPSR's Data Brunch is a podcast about the stories behind the data. We're recording this in September of 2024. We're live at the ICPSR Data Fair, where our theme this year is Anchored in Data Reality. And because it's recorded live, we'll have a Q&A, and we might not be able to get to all the questions from our live audience. So please email icpsr-podcast@umich.edu if there's anything we don't get to here.
Thank you, Scott. This year's Data Fair has 15 virtual presentations on the data and resources held at ICPSR. Presentation topics include harnessing AI for metadata, innovations of the social media archive at ICPSR, data use in the age of artificial intelligence, North of 49, an introduction to Canadian data, exploring COVID-related data at ICPSR, navigating crime data, NACJD, the summer program 2025, introducing ICPSR's new metadata export API, and finding education data from public access websites. To learn more and register, I will send something for people to learn more and register. And also, don't forget to check out our Data Fair playlist on YouTube.
Yeah, definitely check out our YouTube playlist. We've got videos like the new one for students who are interested in the new Data Communication Scholarship that was created by one of our interns, Victoria Johnson. Shout out, Victoria. Students from ICPSR member institutions are eligible to win scholarships of $1,000 for first place or $750 for second place for creating a short video to promote a study in the ICPSR catalog. Submissions are due February 23rd, 2024 at midnight. We're going to drop a link to that in the chat here, and then we'll have links to that on our website as well.
Thank you. And here comes that scholarship link. And please share this with all of your students. Okay. Well, now on to the much awaited state of the consortium. Today we have with us Maggie Levenstein, our director, who will tell us about how ICPSR is doing. So welcome, Maggie. You should be able to see Maggie on your screen. And I will just start us off with our first question. So it is September at ICPSR. It's fall in Ann Arbor. The leaves are starting to turn, and the summer program is finishing another awesome summer. So as we say goodbye to summer, we'll think back a little bit and talk about, Maggie, what are some standout moments from this summer's ICPSR summer program?
Thank you very much, Dory, and thank you, Scott, and thanks to everyone who's organized the amazing program for Data Fair. Thanks to all of you for joining us. This is actually always a great time in Ann Arbor, and it is great to think back on the ICPSR summer program for 2024. The summer program, as many of you who have participated in it know, is always an inspiring moment for all the participants, and this summer was no exception. We had over 1,000 people participating in the program. This year, the summer program central was in the ISR Thompson building for the first time. So that's the main ISR building. And that was a really great way it gives a great space for people to interact with one another and to interact with all of the other researchers and students who are at the Institute for Social Research. So it was really a great way to give us a space for people who were here in person and to allow better interaction than when it was separated off. So we're really happy about that. This was the second summer in which we had offered ICPSR summer program in-person participants campus housing. So if you choose to come to Ann Arbor, instead of having to go look on Craigslist or Facebook or whatever the latest thing is, you can now just sign up and get dormitory housing with a meal plan if you want. So just to simplify your visit to Ann Arbor, I'm really pleased to be able to offer that. We had 4-week sessions this past year, this past summer. That is sort of the tradition for most of the summer program's history was 2 4-week sessions. In 2023, we experimented with 3-week sessions. And I think at the end of the day, everybody was completely and utterly exhausted. So we went back to 4 weeks this year, with the first week really focused on math computing fundamentals. So people could do 3 weeks if they wanted. They could do 4 weeks, depending on that. We had over 50 topical workshops. So there's the core program, but there were also short workshops on lots of things, including for the very first time, the social data science summer academy, which was offered in collaboration with the Michigan Data Science Institute, MIDAS. We offered, as always, a large number of scholarships. So over 100, actually closer to 150 scholarships to people from all over the world, including participants from Ukraine and Africa, most of whom were participating virtually. So about I would say a third of the participants were in person, and probably 2/3 of the participants this year were virtual. So we really have, we think, a very vibrant hybrid program, which gives us the best of both worlds. For those people who come to Ann Arbor, there's lots to do. There are picnics; those are hard to do virtually. But for people who are, for whom it is really hard to get to Ann Arbor for the summertime, it's possible to participate virtually. We also had 38 diversity scholars this year. I think they were all in person this year. And again, just a great programming and a time for networking for them, as well as participating in the summer program. So lots of new things, new friends, old friends. It's great. It's always great in the summer program.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun there. I guess, in addition to the summer program, ICPSR has other resources that we offer to help people with their work. So can you talk about some of those resources and some of the new data that people might find beneficial?
Sure. Thanks, Scott. I was thinking about this and thinking there is no way I could possibly talk about all of the new data and resources that we have just in the last year. So some of this may be just in the last week. But in the big picture, we've had some things like we now have the Consortium archive team, which includes the social science archive, health archive, and education archives. And those are all collections that are sponsored by the consortium for consortium members. We call it CAT, the Consortium Archive Team, that works together to lead that. And Data Jeff got a CAT to help lead the CAT. And after a very long process of nominations and votes, your council representatives voted to name Data Jeff's catalog. So you will get to meet catalog at the end of today's presentation if you haven't met catalog already. In addition, some other highlights of things that have happened recently. We have the COVID-19 Trends and Impact Study, which is an amazing study, won national prizes for collecting data from active Facebook users every day about COVID-19 systems, risks, mitigating behavior, mental health, testing, vaccinations, and other key priorities. The survey had over 20 million responses in its first year of operation, and there's both a national study and a global study. So this allows people to study trends during the pandemic over both short time scales and with fine demographic and geographic detail to look at all of the many social and behavioral issues that were raised by the pandemic. So please check out the new CTIS, COVID Trends Impact Study data. That data is from Facebook. We also, more generally, our social media archive is providing access to data from Meta through an API that allows analysis of platform data. Take a look at the SOMAR website to find out how to apply for access to that data. We also launched and updated the NANDA, the National Neighborhood Data Archive. Those are data that are created by our partners at the Survey Research Center and the Institute for Social Research, providing detailed socioeconomic data on neighborhoods all over the country, and the people are using that to do analysis with that data and in combination with other things. We also expanded the PCORI archive, which we call PCODER. PCORI is the Patient-Centered Outcome Research Institute, and their data reflect the new community-engaged approach to research in which patients are actively involved in the design and implementation of studies. And you want to see what that kind of data looks like, please go to PCODER. So those are some big collections. Just this week, if you want to get a sense of how this is just the tip of the iceberg, just this week, this is not even everything we released this week. We had the influence of the COVID-19 pandemic on New York City public school children's longitudinal health and education outcomes. We had new data on public library services, new data assessing the relationship between immigration status, crime, gang affiliation, and victimization in Arizona. Over a long 16-year period. We had new versions of the national crime, new waves of the national crime victimization study, new waves of Army STARS, which is studies of mental health of active participants, NSHAP and RAISE. Again, these are long-term studies that have been, there are new waves and new modules in those data. And that's just some of what we released this week. So lots of new data for those of you who love data.
Thank you, Maggie. So here you have it. You heard it here first at Data Brunch at the Data Fair. Some of our new data and resources from ICPSR, hot off the presses. And so, Maggie, all of this speaks to ICPSR's incredible data stewardship. Can you talk about basically what's new in ICPSR data stewardship?
So a couple things that we do want to mention. One is that ICPSR was recently renewed its Core Trust Seal certification, which is a sort of the data seal of approval for international global standards in what it means to be a trustworthy repository. And ICPSR has had a Core Trust Seal of approval for a long time, and that was renewed this year, and we're really proud of that. We also know that many of you either have funding from the National Institutes of Health, or hoping to get funding, or are working with researchers who have or are hoping to get funding from the National Institutes of Health. And NIH, like many other funders, has a new policies on data management plans and data sharing. These are part of the sort of Nelson memoranda, the White House Office of Science and Technology Policies push to improve our utilization and the efficiency and access to and equity and access to all of the scientific resources that the federal government helps to create. And this means that people who have federal funding have a responsibility, not just an ethical responsibility, which we like to mention here at ICPSR, but actually a mandate from their funders to make their data more available. We know that that's a lot of work. We can say, oh, that's a really good thing to do for research and for science and for social science, but we know that's a lot of work for researchers. And so we have prepared a whole set of resources for you, in particular to meet the NIH's new requirements. There are webinars, there are online resources, and some other tools to help you address those requirements. And of course, there is always the ICPSR's guide to archiving social science data, which you'll want to look at as you start to prepare your data. With funding from the National Science Foundation, the research data ecosystem has also been building new tools for the research data community. These include, so just actually a little bit, since we have a slide here for RDE. RDE is the largest social science project that the National Science Foundation has ever funded. And it is a mid-scale research infrastructure award, which has been supporting ICPSR to build these new tools for the research data community and to support the research data life cycle. Some of these tools, some of you have probably already seen. We launched the Researcher Passport, which is a digital identity, which that has replaced My Data accounts. It is a more secure, more robust, more sustainable technology, and we'll be adding new features to the Researcher Passport to automatically authorize you to get access to appropriate resources based on your credentials as a researcher or an OR or the role that you play in the research data community. So the Researcher Passport has been launched. If you haven't gotten your Researcher Passport yet, join the, I think, 70,000 people who have since it was launched about 6 months ago. We've also launched a new study homepage. This is available for the National Neighborhood Data Archive, NANDA. So you can see what it looks like there. And this is what the ICPSR study homepage of the future will look like. It is, we like the design. It's a little bit zippier, a little bit more user-friendly, but most importantly, again, it is more secure. It is more sustainable, which is so important to the consortium for keeping the consortium membership affordable. And perhaps most importantly, it supports new kinds of data resources as we make available different kinds of data. There'll be more functionality for those different data resources on the study homepage. One of the new resources that we have on the new study homepage is something called Explore Data. That was actually released a little bit earlier, and that provides new ways for you to just see variables, to create crosstabs and frequencies online, to see what a data set looks like without downloading it. You can actually even scroll through the first few rows of a data set if you just want to get a sense of what is in there. If you haven't used Explore Data to explore your data, these are part of the StatSnap features that RDE has launched, and we urge you to go check it out.
Thank you, Maggie. You kind of mentioned this earlier when the summer program moved to the Thompson building. So I think we should talk about ISR in general and how this is their 75th anniversary. And, of course, we're proud to be part of the Institute for Social Research. So can you mention a couple of things maybe about how we're celebrating at ICPSR, some milestones, some achievements and recognitions that we want to do for the 75th?
Absolutely. So again, for those of you who don't have a picture of this, ICPSR is one of 5 centers in the Institute for Social Research. ICPSR was founded 62 years ago when what is now the Center for Political Studies was part of the Survey Research Center. So those are 2 of the other 5 centers. We're one of them, and it also includes the Research Center for Group Dynamics and the Population Studies Center. 75 years ago, the Survey Research Center and the Research Center for Group Dynamics came together in Ann Arbor to form the Institute for Social Research. And we are looking forward to the celebration of that 75th anniversary next week. I think it's next week. No, next month. Sorry. There must be something else on my, yes, there's a different ISR thing next week. Anyway, next month in October. So we're really proud to be part of that and to be showcasing a lot of what ICPSR does to all of the participants in that workshop. Some other things that we want to just, brag about, as long as we're bragging, is we have our ICPSR's Associate Director, Trent Alexander, received the first collegiate research professorship that ICPSR has ever had. He is the Jerome M. Clubb Collegiate Research Professor, and he chose to name his collegiate research professorship after Jerome Clubb, who was the director of ICPSR and an important social historian who led ICPSR and in fact transformed it from the institute. He added the S. It was ICPR, and now we are ICPSR. So he did that, and we're really pleased to recognize him. And we're so proud of Trent and all the amazing work that he's doing, both helping make ICPSR work wonderfully every single day, and for creating amazing historical demographic data for the research community. So that's one thing. We also have another award that one of our younger faculty, John Kubali, recently received. He received what's called the Flu Lab Plus Program Award. And the Flu Lab is a philanthropic organization that makes grants and investments to solve pressing influenza challenges. John Kubali is my co-PI running the Social Behavioral and Economic COVID Research Consortium Coordinating Center. John is a public health researcher studying infectious respiratory diseases. So his own research is a perfect complement to the leadership that the COVID Coordinating Center is providing to social, behavioral, and economic research on COVID around the country. He is also one of, I have to say, several amazing ICPSR junior faculty who are leading our efforts to demonstrate and live our commitment to open, transparent, reproducible research on key social challenges, engaging in that research and helping to promote data resources for others to engage in such research. So congratulations to John. I want to mention that some of your favorite long-standing archives like NADAP, the National Archive for HIV and Drug Abuse Prevention, were renewed this year. We also have sort of regular renewals to our Robert Wood Johnson archive, whose name just went right out of my head. HEMCA, the Health and Medical Care Archive, and the health. So that was renewed. Of course, our long-standing collections in criminal justice, NACJD, in aging, NACTA, and in demography and population health, DSDR continue to thrive. And the Child and Family Data Archive from Health and Human Services. So all of those are available for you. The last thing that I wanted to mention, this isn't something to brag about, but I did want to mention that we did lose someone who was really important to ICPSR this year. ICPSR council member and longtime chief statistician of the United States for a couple decades under multiple presidents, Catherine Wallman. Catherine had served on the ICPSR council for 4 years, and then re-upped because she was so dedicated to us and so valuable to us. And unfortunately, she passed away in January. And I miss her all the time. There's a tribute to her on our site. She has been replaced on the council by Esther Wilder, who had previously served and who agreed to come back in to step in for Catherine. And Esther is from Lehman College in the Bronx in New York City. So we're happy to have Esther back, but we really do miss Catherine. So those are some of the things that have been going on here this year.
Thank you. And yes, I feel like Catherine would be right here in the audience if she could.
And asking us tough questions,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Keeping us on our toes. Yeah. So, we come to the title, I guess, question of this session, and to talk about the state of the consortium in terms of our data holdings, our membership, our financial strength. And you already touched on some of the sponsored projects, but if you want to say more about that, you can do that here too.
Yeah. So I would say the state of the consortium is incredibly strong. We currently have 824 institutions that are members of the consortium. We had 16 new members last academic year, 16 organizations joined. So we're really pleased to be able to support colleges and universities and research institutions and statistical agencies all around the world. So thanks to all of you for helping to support ICPSR to make it possible for us to do what we do. And we're glad that our numbers are growing. Because our numbers are growing, our financial status is strong. We ended our fiscal year. Our fiscal year ends June 30th, and we ended our fiscal year with a surplus, at which we're really pleased with. And we predict that we will do that again this year. I have to say it's actually particularly important that we are running a surplus at this point because we are midway through the largest NSF grant to the social sciences in history, but it will end in 2.5 years. So this really has given us the opportunity to do so many of the things that I've been talking about and that we will continue to do the next couple of years in terms of updating how we make data available to the research community, but that funding won't last forever. So we are actively planning now for the sustainability of this work, and that includes financial planning for that sustainability. So we are trying to make sure that we are keeping the consortium and our finances strong so that we can build on what we've done so far. We do that with the funding that we get from all of you. And as Dory mentioned, we do that with the funding that we get from a variety of sponsors who sponsor both topical archives that I mentioned and other kinds of projects like the research data ecosystem and other kinds of outreach to support data stewardship and to best practices in data among people who are learning how to use data in the summer program and who come to our webinars and to Data Brunch and researchers and across their life cycles. We received almost $24 million in sponsored awards last year. This was the highest amount that we'd ever brought in from sponsors. And we're really proud of what we've done. And we are, to say, very grateful to our sponsors, including the National Science Foundation and the National Institutes of Health, as well as others that the U.S. Department of Justice, PCORI, I mentioned before. There are a number of foundations that support us, and we're really grateful to them because they allow us to leverage the resources that each of our members provide to do more for the research community. So we're really, pleased with that.
We've talked a lot about a lot of stuff. We still have some time left. I don't know if you wanted to touch on anything that we haven't gotten to yet. Any last insights that you want to share with us?
Well, so I would say, I think we are in this world. I was actually, someone asked, so are there facts? Do facts matter? Oh, I know. Someone asked, this was the head of the U.S. Census Bureau, who actually is also a University of Michigan alum who, was involved with the ICPSR summer program and helped to run our survey research operations. And someone asked him, do facts matter? Are there still facts? And the answer is yes. And in fact, it's incredibly important that people have access to factual information and they have access to the broad social and behavioral and economic conditions that generate those facts, because it is only by providing that context that facts have real meaning and can help us to understand the world that we're in. So I think we are very committed to sharing data, to sharing information that help people to understand the world. And that's why it's not facts in out of context. It is facts about the world that we live in. And we want to make sure that those that data is as accessible to as many people from as diverse a backgrounds as possible. And that means both making the data, having it out there, having it preserved. It also means making it useful to people, and the great documentation, the great user guides, the resources that we provide, they make the data that we have accessible, not just sort of in, in the abstract, but really when people go to look at it, they can figure out what's there, they can understand it, they can use it themselves. It comes in lots of different formats. It's easy for you to learn about because we have these new tools like Explore Data. We want to make our resources represent the world in which we live and be accessible to all the people and in the world in which we live. So those are the priorities of ICPSR. We know that you share those priorities, and we're looking forward to working with you to move them forward in the coming year.
Thank you, Maggie. Okay, so one more question, really, really important since this is Data Brunch. So first of all, it's not fall yet. We have a few more days, September 22nd, but it's starting to feel like fall. People are going to the apple orchards for their donuts and cider. And so the question is, what is your favorite fall beverage?
Well, if we're thinking about fall beverages, I guess what comes to mind is cider. And then of course but of course there's also, and I like hot mulled cider, but I also like hot mulled wine. That's very nice. Let's see. Yeah, I would say that's probably, but I kind of like having a cinnamon stick and being able to stir it around. And yeah, that feels like fall to me.
You just smell everything you just said.
Yes.
I like cider. I also like tea, like chai tea. It's really good when it's cold outside. So if anyone is listening and you can put in the chat, tell us some of your favorite fall beverages and we'll share out some of those later.
Do we have any data on beverages? I'm sure we do.
Sure we do. I'm sure we do. If you find it, put that in the Q&A too, and we'll share that out in our show notes. All right, so with that, this is a chance for you to ask questions of Maggie. So
and now we have just showing, just so you know, this is Data Jeff and catalog, because we are cat people.
That's right.
And dog people. Though I think when we had a vote, we were a little bit more cat people, but we love dogs too. Questions?
Looking for questions. We have a couple of helpers in here, so if you're seeing the questions, okay, there we go. And so yeah, welcome to Linda Detterman, our membership director, and Shelly Petrinko, who I call the captain of the Data Fair ship. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, we got more votes for cider with a cinnamon stick. So someone, Shelly mentioned the Dexter Cider Mill, and we often go kayaking, and you can have kayak. We always kayak upstream first, so that you don't have to have two cars. But when you get to the Dexter Cider Mill, it actually gets really hard to get upstream, and so I'm always like, oh, I think we should just stop here and go over to the mill. And my husband is always want to go, like, we can keep going, we can keep like, there are donuts in there too. I'm looking for questions. Yes. Yeah, actually, I was talking about donuts. Just so you know, our Trent Alexander, the associate director, he is our donut connoisseur. He has been testing the donuts all around Ann Arbor for some years.
Can I comment that says, thanks for this overview. It's really helpful.
I think, oops, something, thanks, Dave, for question. And so I can tell you more about the things that are going on here at ICPSR while we look for questions or wait for questions. I think one of the things that I have to say, this is, I'm gonna just brag on us some more, that the reason that we don't have so many questions here is that we actually have the best user support team on the planet. And when people have questions about our data, about sharing data, about accessing data, our user support team is really wonderful. Our longtime user support person, I see a couple questions coming in. Aaron Mathur recently retired, which we've had some important big retirements here. But we've also have the CAT team has really, and our project management user support team generally has, stepped up and learned all the things that Arun's been doing for I don't know how long, and I think that transition has been really, really smooth. So thanks to Arun, and congratulations to him on his retirement, and thanks to the whole team for continuing to provide the great support. So Michael Martinez has asked, who is the contact for questions about the teaching resource archive? And I think that probably the right answer to that is Lynette Holter, who is, I believe, logged on here as well as watching this. So you can write to Lynette, and you can also just write to ICPSR. Linda's going to write in the correct email address, and it will get to Lynette. Then there's another question that says, are there plans to make any changes to the data curation process in response to the DOJ's recent guidance on website ADA compliance? So I would say two things. One is ICPSR has for a very long time been very committed to accessible materials on our website. We've actually are a leader. We've been training people across ISR and the University of Michigan. A big shout out to Wendy Fornoff, who leads that effort. So our site is generally actually very compliant, goes above and beyond what is expected for ADA compliance. We've actually made a recent change in order to address one place where we had not been able to achieve complete compliance and accessibility, which we really is important to us. And that is in our code books. Our PDF code books have a lot of things that make them accessible, but there are also some limitations. And we are now, as new data sets are made available, they will have a PDF code book, but they will also have an e-reader option for you. And those e-readers are accessible. So we're really proud that we were able to do that. And check those out. Again, they're available for all the new data as it comes out. We'll have that e-reader option for its for code books, and their guidance. An e-reader is like your Kindle, but there are different options. If you don't have a Kindle, you don't need to have a Kindle. You don't need to have a commercial, e-reader. There are guidelines for how to use those e-readers, even if you don't have any special device or any special software. And then there's a question that says, for graduate students, masters specifically looking to pursue part-time research, how would you guide us to engage with ISR's projects? There are lots of options. If you look at the ISR website, and each of the different centers describes all of the different research projects that are going on across ISR. Those are mostly, but not exclusively, led by University of Michigan faculty. And so the people who are involved in those projects, you could just write to them and ask about working with research. Some of those projects create data resources, and those data resources might be available through ICPSR or elsewhere. And you can use those data if you actually want to be part of an ongoing research project. I would just reach out to the PI and say there are just amazing work going on across the institute. You'll find there's something called the Next Gen section on the ISR website that talks about opportunities for graduate students and undergraduates as well. and our junior professional researcher is for those people who are in between their undergraduate and their graduate degrees to get a little bit more of a taste for research. So if you look at the Next Gen page on the ISR website, you can get ideas of opportunities specifically for graduate students across the Institute. But in general, if you look into individual research projects, if you're interested in psychology, you'll find something different than if you're interested in sociology, if you're interested in urban problems or rural problems, if you're interested in health disparities, if you're interested in health interventions, all of those things are possible there. Yeah. If there are specific areas, again, write to us, we can also guide you. I'm looking at more questions. I'm always looking for data science adjacent projects for my undergraduates. I'd really love to work with y'all to groom specific students for specific projects. We have 6 weeks between fall and winter terms. And so I would say for data science, kind of big data type projects, there are a couple places that I would look. One is on SOMAR. So students, the social media website has kind of big data type projects. There's also actually an amazing data set there that is uses the same platform that SOMAR does, that has all of the files from the U.S. Census Bureau that they used to engage in confidentiality protection for the 2010 and 2020 decennial censuses. So that's another kind of big data that if people are trying to learn how to play with other kinds of data formats, those are, I believe, are Parquet files. So very different from, say, the SPSS files that you'd find for a smaller, for sort of normal size data sets in ICPSR. So that's another place people can look. Again, we can give you other ideas depending on whether students have a particular topic that they're interested in or interested in learning about different kinds of data. We also, as you know, have great video data that is, I think, really useful for data science projects. And college and beyond too, a great data science that's a data set that and a great data set for college students to try to use. It is restricted because there's confidential information in there, but it has data on many thousands of college students, showing where they came from and what they did in college, and for some of them where they went, for a very diverse group of colleges and universities across the United States. Great for a data science project. Other questions? And there are surely more if you send it to user support, you get whatever pops into my head at this point, but there's more, and the people who run each of our different topical collections and run the consortium archive, I'm sure would have other suggestions as well. Other questions?
Okay, someone just sent you a heart. Okay.
Thank you.
Wow, well, thank you, Maggie. We really enjoyed interviewing you here on Data Brunch at the Data Fair, and we hope that everyone who attended enjoyed the session and learning about the state of the consortium. And thank you for just being a part of ICPSR.
Thank you, Dory. Thank you, Scott. Thanks to everyone. Thanks to all of you who joined us today. We love our consortium. We love our consortium members, and we love data.
Okay, well, this was an excellent start to the 2024 Data Fair. We hope to see some familiar names in the upcoming webinars this week. The next webinar for today is called Deep Dive into the Child and Family Data Archive, also known as CF Data, Exploring Early Care and Education Data Resources from CF Data. And that's today at 12:30 p.m. Eastern. Then we have at 2 p.m. DSDR, 20 years of sharing population health research data and resources. And then after that, the last session for today, this one is proven to be pretty popular, 3:30, invalid with any code. So go to our the ICPSR website. You will see the data fair right there at the homepage, icpsr.umich.edu. Okay. So if you want to get in touch with the Data Brunch podcast team, you can also visit our website, icpsr.umich.edu, or email us at icpsr-podcast@umich.edu. And for everyone here live, for those, well, if you hear this later, you might be listening in your car or however you podcast, just tag us on social media using hashtag Data Brunch and hashtag ICPSR. And we can't wait to see your posts.
I'm Scott.
And I'm Dory. And thanks for joining us at ICPSR's Data Brunch.